This is the image we're working from. Before we start drawing it, we need to understand what's happening to it in terms of perspective. The first step is to determine where the horizon line is. How do we do that? We look for clues. You can see that the angles going back in space here are tilted downward. And as we work our eye down, we notice that the angles get shallower and shallower and shallower. Where the angles become really shallow, perfectly horizontal, is where our horizon line is. So if we take a ruler and we drop it down, 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 where the angles going back in space are perfectly horizontal, you can see they're perfectly horizontal here, is where the horizon line is. Now, if you're working from observation, you need to look straight ahead, hold either a pencil or ruler up against your eye, and see where that pencil or ruler lines up against your drawing. Because eye level and horizon line are the same thing, that'll help you establish where the horizon line is. Now, let me change the color here so you guys can see the, where's my pen? See the horizon line clearly. Okay, that's going to be in yellow. Now let's start figuring out where our vanishing points are. Let's start looking for clues. Angles that are going back in space will eventually meet the horizon line at their vanishing points. Let's take a look at this angle going back in space and see if we can determine where our vanishing points are. We're going to start here. Let's work our way back, back, back. Okay, so you can see that this angle will eventually intersect my horizon line a couple of inches off the paper. Maybe about 4 or 5 inches to be specific. Now, in this case, when you have a vanishing point that is pretty close to the paper, sometimes you'll have a frame, sometimes you can make a little point on your drawing board, but really, ideally, all you need to do is keep a mental note or write a little notation. Okay, 4 or 5 inches to the left will be the vanishing point for this particular building. There's going to be situations where the vanishing point is really far off the paper and it's going to be hard to keep a mental note of it, but this is not the case. All right, so notice that every other line on this tower goes back to the same spot. So that same vanishing point, that is 4 or 5 inches off the paper. What else? Notice that the bricks do as well. Right? So the bricks, even though they're a little bit uneven, have a vanishing point on the left side that's the same as the other lines. Now, what else? Well, this brick wall right here also has the same vanishing point. So let's use red. Notice that it's going the same way. This way. What else? Probably this rooftop. Let's take a look. Yeah, sure enough, more or less consistent. By the way, these old buildings quite often are not even. They don't have straight lines. So it is quite possible that there are a little bit misalignment. There are a few misalignments here or there. It looks like this rooftop is going back in space as well, like this. And has the same vanishing point. Okay, now let's look at the vanishing points for the other side, right? All the angles going back this way. Let's try a different color. Let's use a dark blue. Hopefully that's visible. Okay, so notice that the angles here are going back in space to the horizon line at approximately, let's say, 10 inches off the paper. Further away on the right side than the vanishing point is on the left. All the other lines are as well. Everything has the same vanishing point on this side. What else? Well, it looks like this brick wall does too. Also goes to the same vanishing point. What else? This doesn't. This bench doesn't. Possibly this building. It might be going the same way. Let's take a look. Not always guaranteed, but it kind of sort of looks like it does. Okay, it looks like the angle is a little bit lower. You know what? I'm not going to draw this line because you can see that it's going to a vanishing point that's a little bit closer. So it doesn't have the same vanishing point as the larger tower. Okay, now let's take a look at this tower. Notice that the angles here don't perfectly line up with our red orthogonal lines going back. That tells us that this tower has a slightly different rotation than this one. Right? You see how the angles don't line up? All right, so we need to create 2 additional vanishing points for this tower, and I suspect that this building and this tower are lined up. We can't be sure, though. Let's take a look. Let's use a different color here. All right, so let's line up our ruler here. Do you guys see that the vanishing point for the smaller tower is further away on the left than the vanishing points for the larger tower? You see where it's going? So on this side, it's going probably a good 10 inches away, right? Maybe even a little bit more. Right? This is something that we wouldn't be able to figure out had we not run lines to our horizon line, right? Okay. Let's take a look. This looks like it's going the same way, obviously, right? Things on the same object usually run to the same VP. Right? Okay. And now let's take a look at the angles going this way. They're going to have a different vanishing point than these blue lines, right? Than this side of the larger tower. Let's change colors. Let's do that. What haven't we used yet? Orange. All right. So look at the angles here. They're going back in space. They're going to a vanishing point that is slightly closer than the vanishing point here, right? Not going quite the same direction. It's going this way, this way. Now, let's see if this building is going the same direction as this tower. Let's take a look. Up. Yeah, it looks like it is. It looks like it's heading more or less towards the same spot on our horizon line. Okay, so we've got a couple of other objects that have slightly different rotations. Let's quickly talk about them. This wall is curved, so it's going to have a bunch of different vanishing points. Generally, it seems to be going to the same vanishing point as this building. So the top of it here, where it's running more or less straight, is more or less running to the same VP, but it starts curving, right? We have a building here, a little bit hard to tell through all of our lines, but you can see that this is in 1-point perspective. Let's bring this down. Right? Look at the angle here. Right? Do you see how it's tilting? Here's our horizon line. It has an entirely different vanishing point of its own. Let's change colors. What haven't we used yet? What color? Okay, well, we haven't used purple, right? I don't think. Let's use purple. Look at the vanishing point here. It's going to hit the horizon line. Looks like right about there, quite possible. This building, well, it looks like it more or less goes to 1-point perspective. It's a little bit warped and a little bit hard to tell, but this building is in 1-point perspective. All right, so now let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see, how do we do that? Okay, like that. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see the whole thing. This block, or is it a pool? It looks like it's a pool. Has its own 2 sets of vanishing points. Let's take a quick look at it. Let's use a different color. I guess we haven't used yellow yet. All right. Oh, we have. Okay, I got confused here. The yellow is the horizon line, not the red. I was wondering what was going on. Okay, so from here, notice that this line goes back in space. Let's not use yellow. Let's use black. How about that? Okay, it goes back in space this way, pretty far away. Look at the vanishing point here. Here, it's really, really close. So one vanishing point is really far away, the other vanishing point gets increasingly closer. So here we have a vanishing point up. Let's do this. we have a vanishing point that's going back in space. Here's a horizon line right here. That shouldn't be yellow, that should be black. Okay. Or we can use white. Maybe that's easier to see. There we go. Okay, guys, so there is our perspective situation. Now that we have a little bit of understanding of what's actually happening here, we should have an easier time drawing it. Keep in mind, a big part of drawing is understanding what you're seeing before you actually start drawing it. And the most important level of understanding when you're dealing with architecture and dealing with landscape is linear perspective. Okay, so let's proceed to the actual thing we're going to draw and see how this works in practice.